Hi everyone, I am Angelica Allen, your host, a stage 3 bowel cancer survivor, wellness and lifestyle expert. I help people make some small changes that compound impact their lives physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I'm here today with Ross. And it's actually the first time we see ourselves. We have had a lovely phone conversation, and it was just after the end of my treatment. Bowel Cancer Australia actually put us in touch, which was beautiful. And I'm so blessed that our cross has crossed, sorry. And and when I spoke to Ross, I got her book, Laughing at Cancer, which was a beautiful book about her journey with bowel cancer as well. And here we are today in the Bowel Cancer Awareness Month. Today, in particular, the Red Apple Day, which is a celebration for Bowel Cancer Australia, when people today is virtual communities, because today can't be doing face to face. So I am really pleased that Ross is here with us. Hi, Ross. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Angelica, I'm wondering if I give you a hand symbol when your sound goes funny sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah. Please, yeah, do. Okay, awesome. Okay. So if you could just start in telling us a little bit about your journey. How was your health just before you were diagnosed with cancer, and what happened leading up to your diagnosis?
Sure. Before I do that, and not that I think I'll forget, but not only is it Red Apple Day today, but today marks 9 years since I had my bowel resection. And
wow.
It's just bizarre. I had no idea that was going to end up being Red Apple Day as well. But
wow.
so anyway, so 9 years ago, and then I'll work back. So I was not really that, I suppose, irregular bowel function wasn't that strange for me, to be honest. And I'd like years even prior to the bowel resection, I'd been on a family trip to Thailand, and I'd actually caught like some sort of it was not a dysentery, but it was a pretty nasty sort of stomach bug. And at the time, that led to some blood and mucus in my stools. And so, that history of that sort of parasite. And then sort of fast forwarding, my bowels, I say, I'd either have, some diarrhea or I'd be constipated. But then there was a growing presence of blood and mucus. So, of course, went back to the GP, did a stool test, came back all fine. And she said, probably hemorrhoids, possibly just stirred up, post-parasite, but, there's nothing to go by here. But it kept sort of, getting a bit more niggling and present in my life. So,
and how long did that whole process went for? Like from when you went to Thailand and had that, was it a year or two, or?
It's a good point, and I'm not sure. I'm going to say a few years, but so yeah, a few years. And anyway, so then I think the GP sort of started to get sick of the sight of me and said, okay, I think it's time to get you checked out top and tail.
Yeah.
So had a gastroscopy and a colonoscopy with and when I woke up from the anaesthetic, the gastroenterologist said, well, you're one lucky lady. I've removed a polyp, nothing to worry about. Wow. See you in 5 years. So I went back home and, fantastic. I could put this episode behind me. Didn't have any answers, but put the episode behind me until about 4 days later, I had a very solemn call from the gastroenterologist who basically said that actually he was mistaken, and it was a malignant polyp, and there were some cancerous cells around the polyp as well. So He then sent me off to a colorectal specialist. And I remember the date of this very well because it was my birthday. It was my 43rd birthday, the 30th of May. On my 43rd birthday, rather than, a lunch date with friends, it was with a colorectal specialist who gave me 3 options, essentially to do nothing more. But, that's just, it's a bit more risky. Option number 2 was to do a partial bowel resection, but as you very well know, you can't test the lymph doing a partial bowel resection in order to actually see if the cancer had spread. You have to do a full chop.
Yeah.
And that option 3 was certainly the least appealing. It was to replace my rectum because that's where the polyp was. So to remove about 30 centimetres of the bowel and to fit me with a hopefully temporary ileostomy.
Hopefully. Wow.
Hopefully, because they didn't, until surgery is done, you don't know. And because of, because it's, so, low down.
Because of the location, right? It's a really hard surgery.
Exactly. So I sort of stormed out of his office and decided that it was absolutely no way that I would be doing option number 3. And he sort of also talked about, potential loss of, sexual function and urinary, all that thing because of where, the rectum is located. And then I sort of I didn't know whether to ask the question that I wanted the answer for, but I didn't want to know the answer, which was what percentage he gave, what statistic he would give that the cancer had spread. And obviously he was not God and couldn't say anything, definitely, but he thought in the range of 2 to 5%. So I thought, well, 2 to 5%, that's not too bad. I'll probably use option 2. But then I went home to my 2 beautiful boys, 12 and 15, and husband, and thought about my life ahead. At the time I was lecturing in health promotion at La Trobe University, and I was running laughter yoga programs, just thinking about my future, and that 2 to 5% statistic just grew in my mind. And I realized that the only decision for me, the right decision, was to choose the more drastic option, so I could lead my life looking forward and not sort of think about any lingering, any niggling sort of pain here and there. Oh my gosh, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I knew that would cause sickness even if it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that, so that sort of leads me to the, say, 9 years ago today, when I was in, I mean, listen, you know how it is. It's a totally terrifying situation to be in, to be prepped for surgery, to, the surgery was close to 6 hours. It's, it's really major, and obviously you don't know what they're going to find, but thank God, later, within the week I found out that the cancer hadn't spread, thank God, and that 4 months later that ileostomy was reversed, and my bowel was reconnected.
I think it was really beautiful for you to write on the book that, when you talk about how hard was the whole preparing yourself for that day, I actually didn't have that because my surgery was an emergency one. So all of a sudden I went from going into emergency with not feeling very well to 3 days later being on that 6 hours operation, which I think somewhat has got its positives, because I didn't have that time. Like, it sounds like the decision that you had to make, it was really hard as well, because it was in your hands, right? A really important decision that you had to make, and you had to kind of really think through. And it's amazing that you went for the hardest one. Potentially there will be a lot of people going, there's no way I'm going to go for that, and that's the end of it. Because physically, your body went through a lot. And when you wrote in your book, just before your surgery, you said, I'm feeling the potential to be reborn again. Like, it was so beautiful to read that you could change your perspective into things, you know, from a situation that was potentially one of the hardest, most challenging thing that you have gone through your life, and you kind of gave that a spin in your head, you know?
Yes. Yes. Well, you know, I'm forever grateful for that time. I mean, I just, you know, I feel for you. You know, to be thrust into an emergency situation, it's even less empowering. I think that there was something very empowering about the fact that I did have choices,
Yeah,
and I did have time to process. And psychologically, I sort of went into the operation very strong.
yeah,
Um, but and it was interesting because as you know, the book is called Laughing at Cancer: How to Heal with Love, Laughter and Mindfulness. And that's because, you know, one of the things that one of my sort of hats that I wear is as a laughter yoga facilitator. And actually I'd been booked to months ago for a corporate laughter yoga session, and it was 3 days prior to, you know, the major surgery, and I so didn't want to go. And it was like I just wanted to feel sorry for myself, and I was just, you know, feeling absolutely, you know, just like really like as if I, you know, just you know, consumed a whole sort of ton
yeah.
of bricks. It was just in heavy laden. Anyway, I went along to, you know, obviously
To this
facilitate,
session, to this company.
and
It was actually my next question, because I was
oh,
going, how did you, how did you, got yourself together to, um, to pretty much, teach people what like how you, and, that saying, isn't it? Preach what preach
practice
what,
what you preach.
exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I actually I told the host that there was something, that I was going through something challenging, but I didn't mention the specifics. And I said, please don't mention it, because I knew if she
Yeah.
did, I would have just broken down. And, you know, I think I prepped myself so hard, you know, going into this session. Something I wrote about in the book, that, you know, I put on a face, and it wasn't, you know, of the makeup kind. And, you know, and I started talking about, you know, the health benefits of laughter. And then we actually participated in, you know, a laughter session. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, I could actually feel
Yeah.
like, you know, just some of that emotional stuff just going. And so I actually, you know, genuinely left that session feeling filled with so much more hope and promise and levity. So it was actually the best thing to help sort of, you know, psychologically, you know, prepare me, you know, for that surgery.
For the
Because
surgery.
otherwise, I would have gone into that surgery with so much more stress and
Exactly.
anxiety. And that's the amazing thing about, you know, that the laughter was so powerful, and that it just helped dissipate. It didn't solve it, but it helped dissolve it.
That's beautiful. Um, it's really interesting. I think I would love you to talk a little bit more about, like the benefits of the physical and emotional body. Now, I wish, after I read your book, I was after my treatment, that I had read your book, during my treatment. I wish I had laughed before doing my treatment. So, because now I understand that, the benefits
Yeah.
from laughing. And I even told you the other day, my kids were laughing about something so silly, and I said, and it reminded me of you, because I thought, why would I stop them of laughing hysterical when I want them to stop and be serious about whatever it was happening? And we adults, we don't allow ourselves to do that anymore. And and I think we forget the benefits of something so simple.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's the irony about bowel surgery is that, firstly, firstly, there's nothing funny about a cancer diagnosis.
No.
Nobody ever, you know, gets a cancer diagnosis and think, that's so funny, huh? No, there's that's point number one. Point number two is that, as you fully are aware, my God, just breathing after bowel surgery, let alone laughing. Like, so there was, 5 or 6 weeks in which I couldn't laugh. And there's something very powerful about sort of being sort of really faced with this thing, something that you've taken for granted your whole life. but it's taken away from you. And it took about 5 or so weeks for me to be able to laugh again. And that wasn't laughter yoga. That was just more, laughing with the family, laughing at
Yeah.
some, inane comedy or, funny comedy. So the thing is, and I discuss it. It's not even necessarily about laughter, as in the ha 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 type of laughter, which is really important. The ha 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 laughter has, that really does help lower blood pressure and create much better oxygen exchange and stimulate the immune system and release endorphins, your happy hormones, and a host of other things. And just just as a stress buster, it means if you can laugh about something, it's you're already on the road to be able to be able to move on. There's sort of like I sort of view laughter in a broader way. It's like a laughter mindset. So what I found particularly powerful, and I think it's something that you would really appreciate, because you've started to write so much yourself and other people, in that journaling. That was the first thing that I did, was I started to took pen to paper, and that's how it ended up becoming the book. Because I realized that you get so stuck in your head. It's such a lived experience of this illness and the stress and the anxiety, but taking a pen is actually something very empowering. And what I realized it could do was, you can actually reframe situations in a much more light-filled fashion. So, even when you think that there's nothing positive that you can think of, you can actually start, thinking, oh, but if it wasn't for this particular, I don't know, bad experience, I don't know, when they were taking blood, that wouldn't have enabled me to have a nice conversation with the nurse, that wouldn't have, led to, or whatever it was. I found that there were lots of ways in which we can change our mindset. And so the mantra that I adopted really early on into my recovery was, I let the doctors take charge of my illness, but I took charge of my wellness. Yeah. And in so doing, I drew on a whole range of different strategies. So because I couldn't laugh, I worked with a smile, for example, and I really sent this healing, beautiful, empowering smile that started in my face, moved to my heart, and then would encircle sort of my belly, and particularly linger in parts where there was pain. So developing a real a smiling mindfulness practice. In fact, I've got, if anyone's interested, I've got a free meditation on SoundCloud, a smiling mindfulness practice, which is something that I think it was, for me, hugely transformational, and I think that other people find the same, because it taps into that feeling of well-being, that endorphin supply. And
yeah, I think it's beautiful what you said about journaling. I mean, I have started writing like on my own journal about everything, and so I think sometimes when you write in your head as well, you think something is so big that when you actually write it down, that thing that seemed so big, it's not that big anymore. It doesn't, when you read it, you're like, was this really the thing that hurt me so much? And when you read it, it was just defined in like a 5-word sentence, and you're like, that all of a sudden things become a little bit smaller. They have less meaning to when you put it, leave it just in your head. And I think journaling is something that I didn't do that in my treatment, but I do it now, and I think it's incredibly healing as well.
It is. It's really powerful, and I like what you just said. And I think part of it is when you're writing, I suppose it really anchors you to the present moment. Your thoughts are just sort of so focused, so it just enables a bit more clarity and as you say, perspective. And it was amazing how often I might start off, quite often to be honest, thinking I'm going to be writing about one thing, and it ends up becoming another. Or I start writing in a really sort of negative, heavy, feeling sorry for myself phase, and then in no time at all, it's like, hold on a second, I realized you know, what you place your attention on, what you focus on, that's what grows. So, you know, the more I placed my attention on my fear, my anxiety, my worry, my, you know, dull mood, the more that grew. But I realized that didn't really help things so much. You know, it's just, you know, it's a choice how we respond, no matter what is going on in our external lives. We can choose how we respond. So, you know, you can either choose to just sort of allow it just to all just take hold of you, or you can decide each day there's going to be something that I'm going to do that's got that, you know, as soon as I can sort of feel that there's this negative track inside my head, or I need a bit more healing in this regard or that regard, that you activate it. You don't just leave it to chance. You make it happen. And, you know, in my book, for example, I've listed the range of things that I did, because, you know, we're not a one size fits all, and each day we wake up feeling differently, and, you know, different things, you know, come our way. So, you know, one day, you know, down the track, you know, I might have chosen to do like a mindful walking practice, whereas another day it might have just been more a whole chapter about appreciation of different, you know, types of friends, that, you know, and friendships. And you know, and gratitude was something that I also, you know, in terms of creating a positive mindset, in terms of creating more of a joy mindset, you can't, you know, you can look no further than gratitude, you know, because as soon as you start to focus on things that have gone well in your day, things that you're grateful for, people you appreciate, you're not thinking about all the people you don't appreciate or the things that didn't go well, you know, and what that does is it actually grows your capacity for, you know, taking in the good.
Yeah,
And
it creates a space, doesn't it? Yeah, it creates a space. Yeah,
exactly.
That is so beautiful. And I think, you know, on your book you mentioned that you know, everybody looked from the outside thinking, oh my God, but, you know, Ross was so healthy and, you know, so young, and why did that happen? And, you know, and you mentioned yourself that, you know, there was, you know, you felt that you struggled a bit with sometimes with negative thoughts. And I think, you know, part of when I looked at the cancer scene, it's always so negative,
So
right?
you've just
Oh,
wobbled.
have I?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, you know, in the cancer scene, even the word cancer, there is such a negative charge around that. And, you know, especially like when people, you have to tell them, look, I have cancer, you know, like when you're young and when you look healthy. And it's really making a conscious effort to make those little things every day that will replenish, you know, yourself and your mind, you know, so because you can't live that chance anymore. Not when you're going through something like
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that feeds into, you know, the reframing. So, you know, very, very early on, I refused to sort of in my head or talk about, you know, it as the big C. In my head, it was the little c. You know, there was a malignant polyp in my bowel, something contained, something specific. Thought, you know, if, you know, God forbid we have to deal with, you know, it being more than that, then we'll deal with it. But as far as, you know, I wanted to view it, you know, I wanted to view it as a, you know, malignant polyp in my bowel, as opposed to I've got cancer, because there's something very disempowering about having a whole of body cancer diagnosis. So, you know, as I say, it was the little c for me, and I think that again, it's part of this whole wellness philosophy that, you know, what I wanted to grow was wellness. And by sort of, you know, for my kids to hear or something that mum's got cancer or something, that's, it's like, whoa.
especially
No,
at the age, especially
yeah,
at the age that they were, you know, like they were, you know, they understood well,
yeah,
you know, what it was. Like my kids were still little; they were 6 and 4, but obviously your boys were
wow.
teenagers. You know, they could understand, which would probably make more of an impact.
Yes.
Yeah, it was much. Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that, you know, when you kind of talk about, you know, how you were before cancer as a person, you know, always go, go, go. You know, I was Speedy
Yes.
Gonzalez, and you're Mother-in-law used to say to you, how do you do, a million things all the time? And it's how you kind of started creating some time for yourself, and just kind of really for self-care, as opposed to, I'll do it later. And you went on a trip, right? Like for 8 days or something like that, by yourself, or?
No, I didn't. That was my hospital stay.
Oh, it was.
That was the irony.
That was the irony. She was like, you had your mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, God forbid, no, I can't leave the kids. I can't leave, it's like, no, I have to stay home. The whole household, relies on me. I'm not going to go on a holiday. And of course, then, the more I was sort of, worn into, that rush. And then my, as I say, I ended up being in, Hotel Cabrini, which is Hospital Cabrini, in Melbourne, for 8 nights, which potentially had I actually been a bit wiser and a bit slower back before, I might have taken a bit more time out for myself. But we're all built differently. For me it was, and still, even though today I still. I don't think that I run around a lot, but to outsiders, I do. Yeah. So it's like whatever sort of internal voice is going on in my head. But the one big difference is now, every day, I have a mindfulness practice. Yeah. Every day I will, take some time to just breathe, and to build in pauses into my day, not just, decide, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but every day. And if I don't, honestly, my energy levels, my mood, whatever it is, the next day will be that much worse. So
I think you start noticing and becoming a little bit more aware of your energy levels as well. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I feel the same as well. Like, for other people, they're like, oh my God, how can you do so many things, but it's like, well, but every day I wake up and I do my meditation, I do my exercise, and then I spend time for myself. And that is today a non-negotiable. It's not something that I'm not going to wake up today, I'm not going to do this today. It's something that I do it for myself. And I think it's so important. And so many people, I feel that, when I see people around me complaining about pains here and aches there, and, you see that they're running around, they're not doing anything for themselves.
Yeah.
And, I feel like you want to shake them, like, wake up, I never wish on anyone what I had to go through, and you probably the same. It was, you were grateful for your journey. I'm grateful for mine, but it was a hard way to learn.
Oh, yes.
Our lessons.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, like just having gone through, this period, with COVID-19, and how, I sort of really hoping that that sort of experience of just sort of hibernating, spending more time just with just, your small unit, in your own company, that, in some regards that can also be part of, a way that people can, review their life, where it is, if they're happy. And so when we sort of emerge from this particular period as well, that, people have sort of grown from it. So, and that's the thing about, my experience, and in my book, it's like, people might see the word as cancer, but it's really, it's a guide for any form of adversity, because everybody goes through stuff in their lives, don't they, Angelica? I mean, everybody. Doesn't matter if it's relationship breakdowns, financial, health, no, life is about, going through stuff. And it's about how we can be best equipped to navigate those little bumps and lumps that come up from time to time. And so, the better we are resourced, the more self-compassionate, for example, we are. So when the going gets tough, that we're actually, kind to ourselves, and, we're there for ourselves rather than beating ourselves up about it, or being really hypercritical. That's a resource. the more grateful we can be for what we've got, for all of the riches in our life.
Yeah.
You know, that's a resource. There are so many resources that we have within, but what happens is that when people tend to, if you get like a, cancer diagnosis or another, full on, big number as such, you tend to lose sort of your confidence that you've got the capabilities to deal with stuff within. You're always turning to the expert outside of you. But I think your experience and my experience has shown that we've got a lot of inner expertise. We just need to empower it. We need to believe in ourselves that we actually, to a large extent, have got the answers, that we know how to respond in a given time, that we know what we need. And, and if we don't listen to that inner voice, it's going to keep coming and tapping us on that shoulder.
Until we listen.
Listen.
I know. I think that is such a valid point that, people, we're always, giving all our trust to people, especially like in the health professions. And don't get me wrong, the doctor who operated me, he saved me, my oncologist, the nurses, I'm very, very grateful.
Oh, yes.
But I think, we are the only kind of, I'm the only me, I know exactly how my body feels and what's happening inside. And if you don't start really having this dialogue with that inner voice, I think it becomes very difficult to find true healing, to really, really kind of understand what you need. And I think we had, very similar journeys on that. We didn't just leave all our power in other people's hands. We took charge, and we did things daily alongside conventional medicine. And there is so much each of us can do.
Yes. And I think that, and that's exactly right, that, people, I think people are getting better in their understandings, but there's a bit of a misconception that you either go this way or you go that way, or you go holistic or you go conventional.
Yeah.
What I write is it's a marriage of the two. It's we need both. For me, I needed to have that surgery, even though potentially I didn't need it, but I needed it because I knew the anxiety and it would have ended up, goodness, it would have destroyed me one way or another. So, and I think that, but, that was the physical side, the whole of me, that required so much more complexity, as I say, that sort of, fine tuning, that intuition. What do I need today? Do I need to just have a dump of all of the stuff that's like, just getting me down? Or do I need to just reframe, I just need to find something funny that happened, in my day? What do I need in a given day? And the more that we can sort of tune in to, as I saying before, to what we need in a given day at a given time, the more we were going to grow our healing capacity and wellness capacity. No one else can do that for us.
Yes, no one can do that for now. And I think it's, on your book, you talk about it after your, the reconnection surgery. I love that, that you rephrase that.
That's a reframe.
I love
that. I go back to the way things were, a reversal. No way. I wanted it to reconnect, future focused.
Awesome. That is so beautiful, because I think, cancer is definitely a tap on the shoulder to say everything that you've done so far hasn't worked, especially, when you get it such a young age, when you're healthy, when you have no family history. So, it's like doing the same thing over again and trying to get a different result. So, I think for both of us was like, I need to do everything different from now on.
Yes.
And I think it's
I don't know if everything. I think for me, I don't know if it's about everything. I've been thinking it's something that people ask. It's like, were you a totally different person? I think the difference for me, I don't know for you, is that I think I just was more authentically assuming my own self. So I was the same person, but I was just more of me, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to someone totally different. Or it was just sort of feeling more aware of my beingness.
You mean after cancer?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I think definitely there's an element of that for me, because after you have cancer, you can't, you need to live the life that you want to live. You can't mess around. I feel like I couldn't mess around anymore. You can't, you can't spend any more time, staying in a place that you don't want to stay anymore. You need to change things around, to start creating a life that you really want to live. And
Yes.
I think there is definitely
Right.
yes, yes, definitely. And I think that's what happened to you, right? You went back to your job, your previous role, the lecturer, and you started thinking about, is this really what I want to do? And you had your laughter business on the side.
Yes.
So how did you transition kind of to, really, start your journey there where you are in now?
Well, I mean, I talk about it in my book. I really did have an epiphany moment. Like, I'd always wanted to have an epiphany
Yeah.
moment. I really did. I was, it probably was in probably about September time. And so, in an academic year, by September, you're already, again, I don't know how many assignments that I had to mark by, X amount of, time. And I started to get heart palpitations. Also, I'd had like the would have been the year scan after, and it came up that there was like something on my liver. And so the specialist, wanted to send me, back to the gastroenterologist who'd done the initial scoping. And he said, but, you've had so many, I'd had some other nuclear medicine type tests as well. So he said he didn't especially want me to go and have an MRI right now, because, I'd had so much exposure to blah, blah,
Radiation.
blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but basically and the gastroenterologist said, oh, it looks like it's fine. It looks like it's a liver spot. Well, he was the same gastroenterologist who said, well, it looks fine. It's,
Yeah.
later. So I had about 2 or so months of sort of the fear building within me. I didn't book the MRI, and I started to develop heart palpitations.
Wow.
And so I was given a monitor from my doctor to wear for 24 hours. And would you believe, I just was starting some research to do, like to run laughter yoga activities in aged care. And it just so happened that the start of that, one of the series of these programs in aged care, was the day that I had to be wearing this heart monitor. So I button up my shirt really high so they can't see the wires, and I go into these aged care facility, and they're all sort of sitting there, grey and old, and I'm thinking, my God, you look like you've got more energy than me. And anyway, so then I left that laughter that session, and I handed back the monitor, and there were a few heart irregularities, but nothing to be too alarmed about. I was sent off for another ultrasound of the heart. But anyway, the day after, I actually had been booked for a big laughter session for year 9s at a large private girls' school in Melbourne. And there was probably about 150 girls. So when I arrived, the teacher organised it, said, listen, it's quite a big group. Do you need a microphone? And I said, oh, definitely, I'll need a microphone. So she said, we'll have to get our sound technician to come, and sort something out. So that's fine. So the sound technician came along, and he basically, there's the speakers that you have, that you
yeah, little ones, yeah.
You feed it, and you tuck it into your, pocket and this, that, and the other. So I had this sound guy feeding wires into me, like, you know, with a microphone. So the day before I'd had like the heart monitor. Today I had like a sound system to, like, you know, so I could do my laughter yoga, you know, work. And I just thought, it was like time stopped still, you know. It's like, just listen, like, either you keep going the way that you've been doing, running yourself into the ground, doing a job that you know is important, but it's not really your, you know, passion, you're going to end up with heart problems. You're going to be your direction. Or choose laughter, choose your passion, choose your joy, and you'll get opportunities to, you know, do what you're doing. So that was it. The decision was made. I finished that semester teaching and I handed in my resignation, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's beautiful. That gives me goosebumps. So that's really, and you know, it takes so much courage to do that.
That's right. Yeah.
It takes so much courage to do that. You know, it's not an easy process. And you know, it was after everything, right? You had done your first surgery, the reversal surgery,
Right.
and you still went back to your, you know, old job, and then you kind of had that moment. That is beautiful. And I just wanted to talk about one more thing that I thought it was such a powerful story on your book. And I don't want to spoil to anyone that want to read the book. I still think everybody should read the book, because the book is
There's
amazing.
a happy ending. Look, I'm here. Talking to you. We've spoiled the ending.
Yeah. And we are here for good as well, right?
Forever. Yeah, forever.
And when you went to see your family in Israel, and there was, you know, obviously was leading up, was just, what was it, 6 weeks after your operation? The reversal operation, the reconnection operation? Or?
I mean, honestly, I look back and I think it's mad, but yes, it was 6 weeks.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And you went to, I hope I can say this the name of the place correctly, the Kotel? Is that
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the Western Wall in Jerusalem.
Yes. So tell us a little bit more about the experience, which was something that I thought was so beautiful that you talk about in your book.
Yeah, thanks. So my son was turning 13 in January of that year. My surgery was late October, and 13 in Jewish religion is very significant for a boy, and generally 12 for a girl. You know, you have a bar mitzvah. So poor Zach, you know, my son, it's like, you know, we didn't know what we were doing, because, you know, would I be well enough to go overseas to have, you know, his bar mitzvah celebration in Israel or not? Or, you know, what were we going to do? Are we just going to do like a small afternoon tea here? And it was just such, it was a real stress. But then on the other hand, it was this beacon of light of something that I knew, even more so, that I had to sort of put absolutely everything that I possibly could into being well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've been to Israel, you know, before, and, you know, I've even lived there for a short period of time. And, you know, you'd go to the Western Wall, you know, this holy, holy wall, because that's just what you did. And, you know, and you know, it was, you know, I could see there was history there, and, you know, it was obviously a place of huge significance, but it never really impacted me in the way that when I got to the Western Wall, to the Kotel, as I say, 6 weeks after surgery, and, you know, there are people, you know, with their prayer books and crying, and honestly, I was just an absolute blubbering mess. It was like all of the tears that I think that I hadn't cried came out there. And it was the first time that I honestly felt my connection to my past, to the Jewish people, to just the power of this symbol of hope, of just, it was overwhelming. And I was so taken aback, because, as I say, before I'd never really, you can't force a feeling.
No.
I think before, when I'd been forcing a feeling. This time it was just raw emotion, gratitude, just an outpouring of just wow, like, thank you so much for delivering me to this moment.
That's beautiful. That
Mm.
is beautiful. I think that's, the emotional healing is so important in the journey, like being open to, like you say, like living moments like that and allowing yourself, like I said, it's not something that you can force, but
No.
everything almost like kind of led you up to that moment so you could
Yeah.
just really feel that and connect and cry and do whatever
Yeah.
you needed to do in that moment. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
So now, if you were to meet somebody who was diagnosed with bowel cancer today, what would you say to that person?
Okay, well, I don't know I don't know what's going on in their life, obviously, and I don't know what the situation is with the cancer, but just be by your own side, as much as you can throughout the journey. Just listen, tune in to what you need. Surround yourself with as much love as you can get. Do whatever you can to empower feelings of joy, feelings of love, feelings of healing. The more you can open up to that, and don't just be passive about it. Do, actively create strategies. It's what I talk about, now. I do lots of I suppose talks around positive, resilience, and it's about, positivity. Resilience is about bouncing forward and not bouncing back. Acknowledge the raw emotions that, what this a particular, diagnosis, but no, this is just a moment in time. It'll pass. And just equip yourself with as many resources as you possibly can to power yourself up to, be able to respond to, so, to heal, and as best you can from surgery or whatever it is that, you
That's
once
beautiful.
thought.
Yeah, that is so important. And I wanted to finalize by talking a little bit about your work. Like you said, when you get told you've got cancer, the last thing you think about doing is laughing. Like I
Correct.
said, it's not funny at all. And there is obviously this kind of, completely, it's almost said it's apart. Cancer is here, laughing is over there. Like how do you, kind of get people to embrace this is, this is something that you can actively, one of the things that you can actively do,
Yeah,
on your day-to-day life when you're going through something like this.
sure. So I understand it's not for everyone, and laughter in a way was just a small component. For me, it was more about the laughter mindset. So
Yeah.
it's about a joy mindset. And so, the things that, it's about even just acknowledging that a smile changes your physiology. If you wake up and you're feeling really down and depressed, even if you fake it, even if you place a smile on your face and you actually put some of the feelings towards that, just, maybe it helps to think about, something that, someone that you love, or something that happened, it changes your physiology. And so I think that, in terms of, we live in a world now, Angelica, there's so much instability and fear, and, there's news overload, there's negativity overload. The reason why I decided to call the book Laughing at Cancer, How to Heal with Love, Laughter and Mindfulness was, as you say, it's about two opposing emotions. Like, I don't think that there is one word in the English language that is infused with as much negativity as cancer. It's
No.
feelings of dread. It's like, I didn't want to talk about it before. But laughter is one of the most positive. So again, if it's people, cancer might not be their story, laughter might not be their story, but positive emotions and negative emotions are always part of someone's story. So how can we tip it so that the negative doesn't weigh us down? Because when negativity weighs us down, we don't heal as well, we don't thrive.
Yeah.
So you think about it as laughter, fine. Think of mindfulness. Think it, gratitude. Positivity. Being able to tap into your happy hormones, so you actually get your dose of happiness. And when I say dose, I mean dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So it's something I talk more about. In fact, people can look me up and see I've got lots of articles, I've written things. But yeah, so it's about finding what feels right to you. But there's no doubt, and this is not just me talking, but for example, there's MRIs that have shown brain imaging of when people watch two different scenarios of a baby crying versus a baby giggling, and what goes on in the brain. So it's not about just sort of laughing if it feels insincere, but it might be about just choosing to spend time with a friend that picks you up, that makes you feel good and doesn't make you sort of think about all of the things that might go wrong that you hadn't thought about.
Yeah.
It means perhaps changing the news into a sitcom. Watch something like Friends or Seinfeld or whatever, whatever gets a giggle going. These are the sorts of things. This is about choosing how we respond in a given moment. So whether we, if we can sort of see that we're sort of going on that sort of downward spiral of emotion, and the anxiety or fear of whatever you're going through is getting to you, acknowledge, not to make light of it, not to sort of push it under the carpet that it doesn't exist, but saying, okay, yeah, I can see this is huge. I've just been given this diagnosis and I've got to think about what the hell I'm going to do and my future, but know that, just taking some time out to breathe or to smile or whatever it is, spend time in nature, these are sorts of things that will help you deal with whatever is going on in this other sort of scenario. So I don't know if that really answers your question so much.
It is. There's so much information there, and so much people can do it. And I definitely would encourage them to look for you on your website, and also Facebook. You've been quite active on your Facebook page.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find me anywhere. But what I wanted to say is, Angelica, I'm delighted to. I'd love to gift one of your viewers a copy of my book. So
That's
if
awesome.
someone wants to send you a message, just first person who messages you, I'm happy to send one. And the other thing is, because it is Bowel Cancer Awareness Month and Red Apple Day, I'm happy to waive postage across Australia. If anybody wants to purchase a book, they can either do it through the Laughing at Cancer website, or just find me somehow and send me a message.
Awesome. And they can buy the book through
or online, whatever, sure. But obviously, if they buy it from me, then I can inscribe something, so that might appeal. But yes, it's available. Basically everywhere, I think, as in online, everywhere you can buy it.
Awesome, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure somebody would reach out to me, and you can send them a book. That is amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I would, I love that. It was, like I said, during my journey, I wished I had come across a book before, because I did come across some other books of people's journey who were not, I couldn't classify as a positive reading. And I think that was quite difficult for me at a time, because I needed something to pick me up, not to, I needed something to give me hope. I needed something that would help me to, like investigate tools that could help me daily. And your book definitely does that. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
It was such a pleasure. And I should just mention, and I can send a link. I'm actually, we've got in Melbourne, we've got the Gawler Foundation, which is, it's a holistic cancer foundation, and they run retreats. I was actually meant to be running a laughter and resilience retreat. Laughter and resilience, end of July, face to face, but that's not happening. But working on an online offering. So perhaps I'll share the details of that with you when it's when we've done it, So that,
Perfect.
you know, it just opens up to, you know, more participation from around the globe, which is amazing.
Yes, definitely. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Ross.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Blessings
being
to
here. It's
you.
been amazing.
Oh, and blessings to you and all of the amazing things that you do. And you are the vision of good health. You just beam. I think it's fantastic. Really, it's wonderful. Whatever
Thank you.
you're doing, keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care, Angelica. Bye.